Direct Object Pronouns. One of the biggest pains in the ass. Like, honestly, why do we Romanians use them so bloody often? Sometimes even I get lost in the context. Dear Romanian enthusiasts, this is exactly the type of torture, fun and games, that we're gonna treat ourselves with today. Do not forget that with these grammar videos, you get not only the explanation from the video, but also the free PDF with all the goodies from this lesson. The answer key for these videos, exercises, and more bonus content. You can find it now in the description, the pinned comment, and on Patreon. If the first page on Patreon is confusing for you and you cannot find what you're looking for, head to the Collections tab and you can find the free PDFs. In addition, there are a whole lot of video exercises if you want to go to the next level in Romanian. And if after all that you still want clarification from a teacher, then you can join our live group classes or watch the recording by accessing the classes collection.
Right, guys, so this is a video that I personally have been planning for a long time now, and I know that many people are really excited about it. We have covered the accusative pronouns and the direct object pronouns in a couple of videos and classes and Q&A sessions on Patreon, but to be honest, none of these videos have been so specifically targeted on pronomen personale and accusative, on personal pronouns in accusative, on direct objects in Romanian as this video. You'll see it basically. You will get the full experience. This is why this is a masterclass, and this is why I decided to put, because there are many things here. We just introduced personal pronouns in accusative. I mentioned that already. The direct objects, that's going to be included. The questions, the type of verbs, the way the logic works, which you'll find out is very similar to English. The different types of pronouns, their stressed and unstressed forms, and even a few exercises towards the end, as well as some exceptions and things to be aware of. This is a very exciting video, and I mean, let's just head straight into it. And first thing I would like to do here is have a look at some examples, and bear with me because we're gonna start from the end. We are not starting with full-on theory like we have done a few times in the past. This time we will really have a look at the example first and then go through the logic of it. So here we have a few sentences very similar at the beginning. Eu văd, I see, yeah? You can see here that văd is everywhere. Now, there is a very big difference to what follows past eu văd. The difference is in the type of word that follows. So you see here ceva, something, doi cartofi, two potatoes, o femeie, a woman, o, which might be strange, and it's even before, o as well, which is before, but also this pe that comes after. So I see something, I see two potatoes, I see a woman, I see her over there at the table, I see her, Maria, I see Maria. So you can already spot some different types of words that can become direct objects. This is what the orange is for. The orange is for direct objects. If you don't know already, that's what we're going to cover in a second. And then you have this verb here, văd, I see, right? And in order to understand when to use these direct objects, the first step is really to get the idea behind the verb. Because, direct object, that might not mean much for you. It's probably just a new word for some of you. But for others, those who know, you can maybe skip this part and get straight into the nitty-gritty of different types of direct objects. But if you're a beginner or a kind of intermediate and you're still unfamiliar with the direct object and how it works, I would still look at basically the first step, which is the verbs. And let's have a look at this. To understand the verbs, like here, to see, you need to learn what a transitive verb is. A transitive verb is a verb that makes sense in Romanian to have a direct object. I think there are a couple of things here that need to be mentioned, such as to make sense in Romanian, because in English some are not using the same logic as they are in Romanian, something that is mentioned here. Some verbs make sense as transitive in English but don't in Romanian. And we'll get into that in a second. So, and the second thing is to have a direct object. We will get to what this means when we get to the idea of the direct object. So some examples of these verbs are, as you can see here, a vedea, a asculta, a deschide, a conduce, a bea, a mări, a citi. To see, to listen, to open, to drive, or to lead, to drink, to increase or to grow, and to read. All of these things are transitive, those actions basically are transitive verbs, and they can have a direct object. Now, what isn't a transitive verb? Think about movement or state verbs. So, a merge, a alerga, a pleca, a veni, a sta, a exista, a ședea. We will get into the depths of it in a second, but for now, just think about things like a pleca, and this is one of the first mistakes probably beginners do when they say I leave, or basically in Romanian, plec acasă. So I leave home, plec acasă, that means actually the opposite of it in Romanian. So plec acasă would mean I leave to go home. So that's why you need to say plec de acasă. So plec acasă, or I leave home. Home would make sense as direct object in English, but it doesn't in Romanian. Neither with a merge, with alerga, veni, and so on. If you look at the examples from here, what these things have in common. So I see something. I see two potatoes. I see a woman. I see her. I see Maria. You can see that the transition, if you want, flows without any interference. It's like, for instance, what do I see? I see something here. Yeah. What do I see? I see two potatoes. What do I see? I see a woman. What do I see? I see her. And what do I see? I see Maria. They transition very quickly. This is not really the proper grammatical explanation, but this is maybe a very easy way for you to think. It's just the question of what, and that's exactly what's next here, and that's the question that you need to ask the verb. So you have the first thing, which is a transitive verb. Imagine a vedea. We had it here, right? Eu văd ceva. And then you ask the question of what, as we did a second ago with ceva. You ask the verb the question of what. What do I see? I see. And you answer, I see something. The answer to that question, the something, or what do I see? I see two potatoes. Two potatoes is the direct object. Well, that is basically the step just before understanding what the direct object is, to answer the question. So there is one little specification here to make about the question, because when you ask things like ce, because we ask ce, yeah. So ce văd ceva, ce văd doi cartofi, ce văd o femeie, ce văd o pe ea, o văd, ce văd pe Maria, pe ea o văd. When you ask this question, ce, it actually doesn't make sense with people. So here when I ask ce văd pe Maria, that doesn't, or here when I ask ce văd o femeie, this doesn't really make sense in Romanian. For people, there is a distinction between people and things, and the difference is that here you ask pe cine, and we'll get to that in a second. But have a look here. So for things, for animals, for abstract items, for example, yeah, let's give another example. If you drive the car, conduci mașina, that's a direct object. You ask the question ce. Ce conduci mașina? Yeah, ce conduci mașina. But then if you have things like ascult, yeah, ascult profesorul, I listen in English to the teacher. But again, some verbs are in English transitive and they are not in Romanian, or the other way around. When you say I listen to the teacher in English, you already don't have a direct object anymore. You listen to someone. In Romanian, you listen the teacher. Asculți profesorul. This is a big topic there about what verbs make sense as direct object transitive verbs and in one language, and what can be a direct object transitive verb in the other. Some of them match, but not all of them. And two examples are a pleca, when you say I leave home, but in Romanian is plec de acasă, so it's a direct object in English, but not in Romanian. And we just saw another example just a second ago with ascult, so ascult profesorul, which in English is I listen to the teacher or to the professor, whatever. Where in Romanian, you get a direct object, but you don't in English because you listen to the teacher. When you say this question of what do I listen, is already to added. I listen to. It doesn't make sense to ask the question of to. Yeah, that's an intransitive verb in English. So those are things that you really need to be aware of if you really want to understand this. And in addition to all of that, the difference between things and people, which is very easy. However, it includes this big topic of the question pe cine. Yeah, pe cine is very confusing for many people, and I completely get why. This is not something you see in many other languages, definitely not in English, and it kind of introduces the idea of pe, which is going to become I wouldn't say a mess, but it needs some practice to get used to it. So after you got the question and the verb, then I guess what's left is the direct object. So we said that we're gonna go backwards here. So we saw that the things that can become or can be a direct object are things like apples, phones, leaves, and dogs. People as well, Anna, student, and so on. Now, in order to understand the direct object and to make this connection to what we had previously in terms of questions and the transitive verbs, there's one more thing that we need to really be aware of, and that's that nouns have genders. So, măr, telefoane, frunză, câine, Ana, student, they all have different genders, numbers as well. So if we look at that, maybe you can try to think quickly now what genders and numbers do these words here have. So maybe pause the video and think about it for a second, because that's going to become extremely useful in the future. Well, the future of this video. So we have neuter singular, we have neuter plural, we have feminine singular, we have masculine singular, we have feminine singular, kind of. This cannot really have a gender, but let's assume it does. It's a name. And then here, this is let's put some quotes on it. And then student, which is masculine singular again. So we agreed that nouns, specifically nouns, nouns here, we say nouns, have different genders and numbers. The possible genders, as we really see here, nouns can be masculine, feminine, or neuter. And they can have two types of, what's called plurality. I always struggle with this. Plurality, singular or plural, right? And we put here masculine, feminine, singular, plural, and also neuter. But in order to understand that piece, we also need to focus on this. We have these personal pronouns that if you got to this point, we assume that you know what that means. Personal pronoun. It's the I, you, he, she, we, you, they. Eu, tu, el, ea, noi, voi, ei, ele. Yeah, if you got to this point, we probably are aware of this. So now, since the topic of today is this, personal pronouns, but in accusative, the ones we just mentioned a second ago, those are in nominative, and we do have a video about them up there. So if this is in nominative, then, well, we should have a connection to those in accusative. And how do we do them? Well, do you remember those nouns that we had a second ago, and we saw some of them in the previous sentences? Well, you need to look at the genders and the numbers in order to associate some stuff. So you need to make this connection. There's masculine singular, so like câine or student. I don't know why it does that. Anyways, that is associated to el. You can even say, when you meant a dog and you want to say in English like it barks, in Romanian you don't say it barks because we don't have a word for it as a direct translation as a subject word. Subject word is this. We don't have an it here, but we do have an it here. You'll see what I mean in a second. And when you say it barks, you don't say it, you say el, because of its gender. It's a masculine singular noun, and it is associated with the word el. Masculine plural, we have that as well here. Yay, masculine plural pronoun. Feminine singular, so like for instance, frunză can be replaced with ya. So if I want to say there are many leaves in the tree, I see one, it is falling. That it is falling, ea cade, ea cade. Feminine plural, ele. So we don't have an example here, but feminine plural, if it was like frunzele cad, yeah, ele cad. And then for neuter, well, some of you might be already familiar, some of you might have guessed it already. So neuter singular takes the masculine singular, so it'll be el. So if we have măr, and we want to say the apple is sweet, and instead of saying the apple because I have it in my hand and I just took a bite, I want to say it is sweet. El, for instance, el este dulce. If I want to say neuter plural, so like telefoane, maybe you know already, takes the plural from feminine. That's how neuter works, and the singular from masculine. And since the feminine plural is ele, we can say the phones, so they are expensive. Ele sunt scumpe. Ele sunt scumpe. So I'm going to say that one more time for all of them. So el can be used for masculine singular, for neuter singular, with the idea of it, if it's a thing. Ana, quite obviously, can be replaced with ya. If that was not clear, then maybe you should start over learning Romanian, because I don't know what you're doing with your life. And then you have ya, which is the feminine singular, frunze. Also, the masculine singular takes the el. Also, the neuter singular takes the el form, which is this. Yeah, so you can refer to the apple as el. And then for plural, masculine singular is ei. So if you want to say the dogs or the students, ei alergă. So the dogs are running, they are running. Ei alergă, studenții învață, ei învață. Yeah. And then for feminine, frunzele, studentele. And then for neuter plural, telefoanele, merele, and so on. If that's not clear, maybe rewatch this, pause the video. I'm not going to say it again because I think this is really not rocket science. I think it's really basic. Anyways, and maybe if you need some help, extra help with this to understand this, watch the nominative pronouns and also the videos on the nouns season. So since those are only 4, el, ei, ya, and ele, those two are the same, right? So there are 4 words. Yeah. And this is what we agreed with. Câine means el, câine is ei, frunză is ya, frunze is ele, măr is el, mere is ele. And, well, now, if I want to say, I see 2 potatoes, coming back to the starting position where we started this video. So eu văd 2 cartofi, eu văd o femeie, right? We talked about this at the very, very, very beginning of the lesson. So maybe you want to start already to assimilate and make some connections about what we've been talking in the last 20 minutes or so. You have eu văd 2 cartofi, so I see 2 potatoes, but maybe you want to see I see them. I see a woman, I see her. Yeah. And you want to think about the gender of this and the number of this. Same with this one. Yeah, this is the kind of connections we should make already. So here, if I want to say in English, I saw them inside the pantry, obviously them being the potatoes, I can maybe make this super obvious. So them, 2 potatoes, and I saw her in the middle of the street. I'm gonna underline this and put it here. So now you can see it. So I saw them, yeah. What gender and number is the are the 2 potatoes? Where it's neuter, it's masculine plural, and then for this one is feminine singular. So we should think of ei. I already changed the color. You can see we already are making some progress to the to the direct object, and then feminine singular. So yeah. Yeah. So when you think about it, this is where you need to go. Those places, wherever you see yay or any equivalent of it, or ya or any equivalent of it. So then we have 4 forms. for the direct objects, which are going to be used here, direct objects pronouns. So for them, for her, and for him. So îl, o, îi, and le. The reason is because we also have this ele and yay. Yeah, so this bit here, that is a bit different than English. Ye and yele. In English, you have only 3. There isn't a them for masculine and them for feminine. And basically, you can take these 4 options and use them anywhere you want for him, for her, and for them. So in this instance, when we talk about them, the potatoes, in masculine plural, let's have a look. We have masculine plural, îi. So how would you say, I saw them inside the pantry? It would be îi am văzut în cămară. You can also cut this and get i-am văzut în cămară. And that's your sentence. Or with the other one, with the woman, I saw her in the middle of the street, you use o, so am văzut-o în mijlocul străzii. We will get to the reason why it's am văzut-o and not o am văzut in a second, but for those of you who know already, it might ring a bell. So, what did we come to until now? We understood what kind of verbs can use or can take direct objects, can accept direct objects. The questions that you ask, that's going to come very, very important in a minute. And then the direct object, the idea of a direct object. Îl, îi, o, and le are direct object pronouns. Yeah, direct object pronouns. Direct objects are also doi cartofi, o femeie. For example, all those can become direct objects. When we had a look here, all of these underlined orange words were direct objects. And yes, here you can see I underlined 2. We'll get to that in a bit. We got to what a direct object is, and we even found 4 of them. There are a few more. As we agreed, this is him, this is her, this is them for masculine, them for feminine, but there are a couple that are missing. So this is what we're going to do next. But just before that, we quickly want to make that clear. So mă vezi, da, te văd. We already see 2 more. So do you see me? Yes, I see you. Yeah. Îl văd pe Kristi. I see him. I see Kristi. I see Kristi would be the translation in English. O văd pe Ana also. Îi văd pe prietenii mei. Le-am văzut pe celelalte. So, you can see that we used here very different types of pronouns. So you have me as well, that you didn't have earlier. So who do you see? Me. It might help you understand a bit better the idea of pe cine. But again, we'll get into that in a second. So pe cine, so who do you see? In English, actually, it's whom do you see? And that's something that's going to be mentioned and treated a bit more in detail in the learning material that's available for free on Patreon right now. So, pe cine. And te văd, I see you. Whom do you see? For those of you who don't know what whom is, well, maybe get familiar to that first, and then you'll understand what pe cine is. But basically, it's a question that's very similar to who, without an M at the end, that's only used for direct objects. And then, îl văd pe Kristi, o văd pe Ana, îi văd pe prietenii mei, l-am văzut pe celelalte. Here you have a name, here you have a name, here you have just a common noun, and here you have a pronoun, celelalte, others. You can put basically anything after pe, anything that really makes sense. Usually a pronoun or a noun. Normal well, not normal, sorry, a name like a proper noun or a common noun, as you see here. So finally, we get to this. That was a while. It took a while. It really took a while to get all the way here, but yeah, this is what the direct objects and the direct objects pronouns are. Now, we talked about singularity, plurality. We talked about the person. We talked about the nominative pronoun. We even saw most of these unstressed direct object pronouns. We saw îl, we saw o, we saw îi, we saw le. We earlier even saw m and te. And the other two that we didn't see yet, but they were, well, not very difficult. So ne and v. And the English translation is me for basically anything that's in here. And you for anything that's in here. Him or her for basically anything that's in here, with a big exception. We're gonna get to that in a second. Then us for ne and, for example, pe noi. You for pe and pe voi. Them for îi, pe ei, and le, pe ele. Yeah, îi and pe ele doesn't make sense to put them in the same sentence. But anyways, this comes with a little asterisk as well, because, well, you might know why. This is the stressed direct object pronoun, because it's mine, tine, elia, and so on. But this stressed form, which is going to come in a future video in more detail, but we're talking only about pronouns today, this stressed form can replace the mine, as you have seen quite a lot today anyways. You can replace that pe mine with, or pe el, with pe Kristi. Pe mine you cannot replace it, and pe tine or pe noi and pe voi you cannot replace. This is why I put the asterisk only on the third person, only on the third person. You cannot really replace pe mine, pe, it doesn't make sense to replace it with anything else. Like you cannot say I saw me and then specify who that me is. Me is I, and that's it, you know. But you can replace yel or ya, or ye and yele with basically anything that's here. Like you can replace it with Kristi, Ana, prieteni, pe celelalte. So there is a lot that you can do with the third person. That's a lot of fun you can have with the third person here. And that's the direct object pronoun. Now, there are some extra things that I would like to get into. And the first comes here. The stressed form. This one. The stressed form can take, as you have already seen, many forms, not just the accusative pronoun. Right? So this is exactly what I talked about a second ago. You can see pe cineva, pe oricine, pe altul, pe români. But this is not really the direct object pronoun, the accusative pronouns. We're not talking about that, this specific thing today. And this will be the subject of another video. But you see some other options here, right? Which is really cool. Also, there can be many other combinations, like accusative preposition plus direct object. So here, you see that I put in the brackets or any accusative preposition. There is a reason for that. Now, this will not be anymore a direct object if you replace it with any other accusative preposition. This will be just the stressed form. This should get probably a separate video. The whole stressed form situation should get a separate video. And the accusative preposition, so we had pe here, but we also had for like other examples are here, for example. So imediat îl trezesc pe George. This is just the classic, what we've seen already. Yeah, direct objects pronouns and the subject are never the same. We'll get into this in a second, but I want to finish my idea with the preposition. So, îmi place de tine. This de tine, you don't have this as a direct object anymore because you don't ask the question of ce. You don't ask what do I like. In Romanian, if you have this preposition, this de here, already it's altered. The meaning is altered. You don't like you. You like of you, kind of. Again, it's a lot. You have to change your brain to the Romanian one. Otherwise, you don't have a chance. If you're going to stick to just English translation, that's just redundant. And if you do that for a long time, that's just frustrating. So it's good to be aware of it, to familiarize yourself with it, to practice it, and eventually to just accept that there is a difference in the way Romanians and English people or brains think. Voi veni mâine la Andreea pentru teme. La Andreea, or la ea, or la prietena mea, or whatever. Yeah, so I will come tomorrow. This la Andreea, it might look like, oh, it doesn't have anything to do with the direct objects, right? Or with the stressed forms. But you can replace Andreea with ya, right? You remember we talked about this in this beautiful graph we did here. You can just replace Andreea at any point. For example, Ana was a feminine singular, so you can replace that with ya. So that's exactly what happens here. You cannot say pe o. The reason is because we saw here the stressed form is not o, it's pe and ya, never anything else. So that being said, even though this can take the stressed form of the accusative pronoun, I'm going to say that one more time. Even though this takes the stressed form of the accusative pronoun, this is not a direct object. And finally, the last little tiny thing that I want to talk about here, and this is something that fortunately, this doesn't come, it's surprisingly low in frequency, this mistake of confusing the direct object with the reflexive, mainly because people really forget the reflexive pronouns. But let me ask you this. What's the difference between îl and se? If you don't know, well, then it's quite easy. This one is a reflexive. This one is a direct object. And this is what we're talking about here. Direct object pronouns and the subject are never the same. I'm pausing now because you might need a second to think about this, but direct object pronouns and the subject are never the same. If you say eu mă văd, this becomes reflexive. And I see myself. Maybe this is not the best of the best examples, but if you say, for instance, let's choose a more hardcore reflexive verb like a se uita. Yeah, so a se uita is to watch. If you say mă uit, yeah, this means I watch. This is reflexive. But if you say, like if you want to say îl uit, this is not reflexive. It means, and it even changes the meaning, because îl uit uses îl as a direct object, and it means I forget him. Yeah, because a se uita is reflexive, and a uita is to forget. So for instance, if you want to say se uită, that's he or she watches, and this has the same person, third person singular as this one. Both of those are the same. This might be a bit cluttered, but basically, yeah, third person. What the hell is going on? Third person singular, or both of those. And this means it's reflexive. This, it has the same, yeah, ma and wit, reflexive. And wit, this doesn't match this, so this is a direct object. Reflexive pronouns will have a different video, but I think this would be quite too much for the purpose and the scope of this video. Finally, if you had a blast so far and you want to practice some exercises, you have here 3 exercises that I really recommend you start doing them. You can find them in the learning material that's available for free on Patreon. You can see all 3 exercises over there, as well as the answer sheet. So 1 and 2 and 3. If you want, you can pause the video, you can sort it out now, you can go on Patreon, the link is in the description and in the pinned comment. And if this is not enough for you, there is also an exercises PDF available for Pretenaș tier, which is basically for the price of a coffee a month, and you get every month a new PDF with exercises for the various grammar topics that we get, as well as Q&A sessions that have nothing to do with grammar, just asking basically any questions related to Romanian or culture or anything else. And you also can help with the making of cultural videos, because I usually post some polls there and I ask you to help me decide on the topic. And last time it was really cool. That's how basically the Ursul Păcălit de Vulpe happened, the video that you can see up here, the story that every Romanian lives by, and it was a blast to do that. It was very creative and I really encourage you to watch it. It's really fun and it's in 3 different accents. Anyways, this is what you get for $5 a month, as well as the exercises that are very different than what we have here. They are going to really help you understand from many different perspectives and on different levels this topic of direct object pronouns, or like personal pronouns in accusative. And in addition, if even that was not enough, after the second part of this video series about direct object pronouns will be released, there will be a second video about other tenses and moods in terms of how you order the direct object pronouns, because I know that is a big confusing topic. So there will be a second video on this topic soon, and probably a few more later. But after the second one is released, you will even get access to a class if you're Învățăcel or above, live. If you can and you want to join this class live, we can sort out any other problems you have with this topic. You go on Patreon, sign up, and you join the class, or you can watch it as a recorded class as well. That's always going to be available on Patreon. I am considering doing a stressed form video as well. That's going to come soon too, and probably also part of this season we might get to the indirect objects. That's all about dative. So that's it, guys. I'm gonna leave you with this table, because I suppose all of you need it. You can have it if you go to the learning material on Patreon, and that's included in there for free. Thank you for watching. Please let me know in the comments what you think. If you have any other questions that I can help you with, if not, I'm gonna answer them. If it's a too difficult question to answer in a comment, I will answer it in the Q&A session, the next one we have probably in January. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't. If you're new to this channel, this is what we do here at the Romanian Academy. This was a very special class, very long, but very special, because probably many of you have waited for this for a really, really long time. There's a lot of other really interesting grammar material, cultural material, vlogs, cultural, I said already, colloquial, and even business. We started with business Romanian recently, and I'm really looking forward to continue with it. Without any further ado, I will let you go and practice this on Patreon. And until the next one, la revedere!